Challenger.
Welcome, viewer. For today's tomfoolary, we will look at a video from Flat Earth Warrior with some astounding claims. So let's hear it first.
With this video, I'm going to completely debunk satellites in space, Google Earth, Google Maps being nothing more than smoke and mirrors, and obviously this fake phony ball Earth that we're supposedly living on. Let's take a look here. Let's get a close-up of New York City, of any city street. Okay, look at this. You see cars, you see people walking on these city streets. Okay, now zoom out. Let's zoom out of New York. Now let's see if we can see any airplanes that are all the thousands upon thousands of airplanes. Now taking a look at Flight Radar 24, what do you see here? And all these airplanes. This is real time Flight Radar 24. Okay, again, real time. Now here's the problem. When we get back to New York City, where's all the planes in the sky? So what I'm getting at is, at a certain point, you're seeing real footage from an airplane. That's what Google uses. They have a fleet of airplanes that fly over all over the world and capture this footage.
Okay, you can stop laughing now. Seriously, are these people really that stupid? One of my intentions behind these videos is to be able to help those who are just looking into this craziness and getting pulled into the rabbit hole. If I manage to get through to one person where he or she would actually understand the silliness of Flat Earth claim, it would be worth it. So let's talk about Google Earth and how some of it works. Google was founded in September of 1998, not so long ago. Before that, we still had maps, we had globes, we had the blue marble image. Who remembers having an actual globe and using magnifying glass to read the names of some really small countries? Why would Google or any company discard all the collected verified data over years and start from scratch? The answer is they wouldn't. Don't worry, I'll get into some facts soon. Let's start Google Earth. I get a view from space and the Earth gets zoomed in. I can see the continents and yellow lines drawing borders, and I can rotate, zoom and stuff. This is computer generated image or CGI. Obviously we understand that in real life we don't have land borders drawn in yellow, which I'm pretty sure I can change in settings. Does anyone really think Google sent a spaceship that would get a 360 degree of footage from different altitude to get this effect? I don't know how Earth is written, but being a programmer, I would have just used a sphere with texture mapping. Obviously the texture would be broken down into smaller parts at different LOD or level of details. At times, tiles would be reused for faster experience. Note that in Google Earth it is a sphere and not spherical object. This technique is called texture swapping. As we zoom in, higher details of texture is being downloaded from internet and stored locally. So first time you zoom into a place, it would be slower than when it is in cache. You'd notice near the bottom of the screen, it shows some details and copyright sign. The further zoom says copyright Passersoft. So that image is provided by this company in Turkey. As we zoom in, we see the copyright changes depending on sources like US Navy. Play with it. You will see that these data are from many different companies around the world. Then at times we get how the images are taken, like land satellite Copernicus. Those who are born before GPS and modern gadgets who remember using a map to navigate. I even recall buying London roads every time I used to visit it in 90s. Now, did the publisher A to Z drove around every single road in UK to put it in their map? Of course not. As roads are built by the city, there is this thing called City Planner Office, and you get the data from them. With the advent of GPS, Garmin and other big names managed to convert the road to computer-friendly data. That I can talk about for hours, but would be a programming video rather than debunking. As had I written my own GPS software back in 2004. Then you have niche market, us flight sim fans. We want high quality mesh data, i.e. better elevation data for the places we are flying above, better aerial view, and there have been private companies that mapped such and supplied that market. That brings us to legality. It depends on the country. A draconian country like China's 1992 Surveying and Mapping Law prohibits surveying or mapping of mainland China, making it illegal without special authorization by the Chinese government. Don't think that they don't enforce it. The government has brought forth many cases against various entities like Coca-Cola to British geology students. Back to the same question. Why redo the work if it is available and accurate? If it is not accurate, we can try. I do have some fun examples of bad map later on. So let's move up higher before coming down again. The video claims regarding Google Fleet is right. To be honest, a lot of the claim is correct and also only part of the full message. Was I talking out of my arse when I talked about existing data and about avid flight simmers wanting aerial view? Surely there must be existing data. Indeed. Well, I can just read out a news article title and it would make sense. Google sends fleet of planes to create 3D map of Earth. Google's head engineering for its map product, Brian McLeod, said the company was using a fleet of airplanes owned and operated by contractors and flying exclusively for Google. Google has used airplanes to collect aerial photos in the past, such as following the 2010 San Bernardino, California gas line explosion. But the latest effort marks the first time the company will deploy the plane in a systematic manner to build a standard feature in one of its products. Wait, there is one more catch, called the international law. A basic principle of international air law is that every state has complete and exclusive sovereignty over the airspace above its territory, which means for any aircraft, even flying in that area has to have permission. Then if you think of all the government installations that are confidential, starting from UFOs for the tinfoil to real-life installations like nuclear facility, army garrison, prison structure, I can go on and on. Now, some of you might still think that Google did use their aircraft to fly over every place and got the data, which then somehow had to be censored. In Asia, the entirety of Israel, Palestine, and Israeli-occupied Golan Heights is shown in low resolution in all US-based mapping service. This is the result of the Kyle Bingaman Amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act of 1997 to regulate the distribution of zoomed images of Israel. Obviously, we have China, Tibet, Nepal, Xinjiang re-education camps, and a place in Turkmenistan that I will not even try to pronounce. In Europe, we have a bunch of places from Belgium, France, Greece, Spain, Russia, just to name a few. To hammer the point home, back to China. There are only 14 companies that are granted permission to make map in China, and those are all Chinese owned. Not a single foreigner has been allowed to map the country. So companies like Google has to partner with Chinese government approved companies like AutoNavi to have any map at all. Where most of the countries around the world use a GPS coordination system called WGS84 that stands for World Geodesic System, China uses a system called GCJ02. So after the government approved companies plot the actual data, It is fed through an algorithm that randomly moves coordinates 50 to 500 meters from where they actually are. And we have to live with that bad amended data. But the point here again is, you can't willy-nilly go and plot a land. There are protocols. That was a long explanation just to explain where the data comes from. So, is it computer-generated image? Well, I can argue either way. Is it in the sense of Marvel Cinematic Universe CGI? Of course not. Composite would be a better choice of word. Fun fact, KFC signs are censored in Google Earth. As all faces are censored, so is Colonel Sanders. Let me show you where I live. This is my closest supermarket. It's the building behind home base, and I can see some cars coming out of the junction. Now, in all seriousness, am I stupid not to be expecting a live feed? Movies like Enemy of the State has a lot to answer for, giving us the impression that we can move a satellite around as we please. At least Kingsman had a better take. This is not live, guys. How do I know? Well, I had been looking at this view for a couple of minutes while writing my script, and nothing has moved. Let's go home. This is where I live, and that Audi was my last car from last year. They do update this once in a while though. The last time, I think it was several years ago, when I had a different car.
Again, this is all real time.
How dumb does one really have to be to expect current aircraft position to appear on an old still image? Remind me of the old joke. A friend keeps watching the same movie over and over. One asks why, and he replies, "There is a scene where a female is getting undressed. Just as she's about to take her top off, a train passes by and the camera shows the train instead. So I'm hoping that the train would be late one of these days." Back to the actual claim. Let's see what people with far more time in their hand than me have found so far. Not to mention that these textures are updated, so even if we see something today, it may not be there in view tomorrow. I tried some search. Here is one result from 2017 when Redditors, why that does not surprise me, found a Virgin flight near Portsmouth. Let's hop on. We have the exact location, we plug that in, and nothing. Darn. But wait, Google Earth does show me historical imagery. That tells me the view I am seeing is from 2019. Adjust the slider and previous shot is 2015. And voila! Then I found this image taken by the WSGS Landsat 8 satellite on August 14, 2019, near southern Oregon's Calumet Marsh National Wildlife Refuge. Let's jump to a busy place like JFK. We're looking at an image from 10th of May 2020. Look at the runways. I can only spot one aircraft taxiing. Let's go back in time to 27th of June 2019. One is speeding down the runway. I can see two awaiting orders here. At least three more taxiing. Another train line. And one is getting ready. At this point, I will admit that I have a life. Looking at this image, I can assume there was a craft earlier taking off from 13R and should be around somewhere, but I'm not going to look for it. Simply because, are we saying they never took off? I have been on aircraft once or twice, and honestly, they do take off and travel. Couple of things to point out though. Even at super busy time, there would be couple of minutes apart between landing and takeoff due to air turbulence and such. Next, a commercial aircraft would reach its cruising altitude typically between 31,000 to 38,000 feet in the first 10 minutes of a flight. That's around 9.6 km upwards. On screen, you can still see JFK, but from eye altitude of the same. Do you see how small the aircraft looks? If your viewing altitude is less than that, you will probably never see any of those cruising. My only guess? When this guy looks at Flight Radar 24 and size of those aircraft icons, he expects the same in Google Earth. And he wants it live, goddammit! Finally, if it is an aerial shot from plane and such, those would be a lot lower altitude, and thanks to flight safety regulation, would not be a direct path with any other flying craft. With downward facing camera, exactly how would it be possible for this shot to have any other flying craft is beyond me. The video also makes the mistake by saying, while zoomed in it is real. In fact, that is when it is most CGI. When you view in 3D, a lot of the buildings are 3D models created from the fleet we mentioned earlier. So the cars, people are real, but 3D buildings are rendered. Isn't it fun when people with no expertise talk with such confidence? There is a term for that. I forget.
Show me an airplane, a single one.
I did. Just because you couldn't find one means what exactly?
And this clearly demonstrates that there are no satellites in space.
How did any of this demonstrate that there are no satellites in space? I did fast forward a lot of his verbal garbage, and maybe I missed the actual point. Oh wait, his point is, as he can't find live flight in old satellite image means satellite don't exist.
That fly over the plane, that's why they're called airplanes.
That cannot be a real explanation, can it? Hey bonehead, we also have other crafts that can fly, like helicopter. Explain that.
And again, when you look at so-called satellite images, all you see are these cartoons, basically composites, nothing real.
Yet another lie. This guy seems to assume satellite just exist. Well, now, though in theory anything orbiting our dear Earth can be called a satellite, but we're talking about man-made object that we sent out to space for a particular reason. We have actual photos on ground, at launch, at orbit and such. When someone calls everything a CGI, one begins to think, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. What I find more disturbing than this guy is the comments this video is getting. Is every single one of them this stupid? Finally, if you want to find out more about China's map manipulation, I will find 2 videos you might be interested in. One from Half As Interesting and the other from China Uncensored. Well, this is where I will end this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this content, you know what to do. As some YouTubers would say, smash that like button. Too violent for me. So maybe gently tap it once? If you can also subscribe, that would help my puny channel grow, and that would be seriously appreciated. Have a safe day. Signing off.